It glides through the water, this sturdy craft, with a calm that soothes the soul. Usually.
Really, the canoe is the symbol of Canada.
But there's a science and a history to this Canadian symbol. How to paddle it, how to break it, how to use it, how to survive in it, how to schlep it, how to have fun with it, and how to make your life just that much better with it. There's something, I don't know, just something very spiritual about being in a canoe. It's almost meditative. It's like the silence, the gurgle of the water on the paddle, the motion of the boat. They all serve to strip away the tensions of a modern life. I've spent a fair amount of time in canoes. I like to think of myself as a fairly accomplished paddlist. And here to prove me wrong is a veritable Picasso of the paddle, Jana. So Jana, dude, how'd I do coming in there?
Excellent. We've got lots to build on.
What's that? We got lots to build on?
Yeah.
What's that mean? I have a lot of work left to do, or that I have a solid base?
Yeah, you have a solid base. So the first thing is, why don't we just do our strokes on land so that you can see
Sure,
them.
okay.
All right, so the first stroke is going to be your steering stroke. It's a J stroke.
Okay.
All right, so it's a forward stroke.
Yes.
And then you turn your paddle so it's flat against the canoe. And you push away. So let's try it. Forward, turn, push.
Flare.
Excellent.
I like to call it forward, rotate, flare. I think I've got it. That's pretty easy.
Looks good.
I like it, yeah. Like this.
Oh, shoot.
I'm all right. I'm okay.
All right.
I'm okay. The water would give.
Yes.
Like what I do is practice on the land like that to build up strength. That's just my own technique. Anyhow,
All right.
sorry.
So, all right, let's go try it.
How do I decide which side? Does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
Whatever's okay.
But just stick with one.
Okay. Don't swing it around?
Yeah.
Look like a bit of a novice, don't I, when I swing it over my
Gets a
head?
bit tippy, yeah. Wastes a lot of energy, too. All right, so the next thing you might have noticed as you were paddling into shore here is that if you just paddle on one side of the canoe, your canoe's going to start to turn.
Right.
Okay? Because there's only power on one side.
Big circles. It's
Yeah.
good. It's a good way to make a lot out of a little bit of water.
There you
right?
go. Yeah. What you're going to need is a little bit of a correction at the end of your forward stroke,
Yes.
and that's going to help to make it to steer you.
This is the J stroke, right?
Yeah.
It's straight through here.
Yeah.
It turns and then push out, just
Yep.
like that.
If you feel like you don't need that correction at the end, just leave it out. So you just toss it in whenever you need it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Here comes someone who's under a slightly different form of power. Do you ever draft off them? Get in behind them?
No, smell that. Yeah.
That's nice. And I thought canoes stunk. But no, the only smell I guess you get off a canoe is off the paddler.
Yeah.
Stroke, flare, away. So just past my hip, right, Jana?
Yeah. Looks
Away.
good.
Nice.
Beauty. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Jana.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Can we do the props
Sure.
with the paddle? It's nice.
All right.
Very nice. This is truly old school transportation. In fact, the word canoe has its earliest roots in the word Canoa, which appeared in the writings of the Polynesian people dating back to 2500 BC. But it was the First Nations people of North America who really captured the world's imagination with the canoe. The canoe was the perfect craft for getting around Canada, a nation crisscrossed by veritably thousands of lakes and rivers. South of the 49th parallel, however, there were fewer waterway systems. Down there, The old horse and carriage was the best way of expanding west. But up here, the waterways provided an excellent superhighway. These countless routes were the roads of the day, spanning a landscape that the canoe was specially designed for. In the continental interior, First Nations people built small maneuverable craft that performed as well on rivers and narrow creeks as they did on lakes.
The birch bark canoe, it's special because it's a gift of nature, put together with very creative hands. Birch bark itself, of course, is the best bark of them all because the grain of the bark goes around the tree, the only tree that allows that.
These early builders used white birch bark. Now, I know the bark canoe sounds flimsy, but it was sturdy enough to withstand the wear and tear of travel. Also, it was light enough to carry over portages yet still hold heavy loads, and most importantly, the birch tree could be found everywhere, making it possible to do a patch job anywhere.
Any birch bark canoe owes its development to the genius of the Aboriginal people who developed the bark canoe. There's really nothing like this in the world. For what it does, this was perfectly suited to its use. Invariably, you'll find that at some point disaster struck, the canoe was torn apart and then rebuilt within a day and they're back on the water. That's the crux of a bark canoe, really, is that the materials are either in the bush or you're traveling with them, and there isn't much on a bark canoe that you can't just repair on the side of the river.
You know, the canoe is a perfect model of utter simplicity, just like me. But what is the scientific principle which allows it to float? Buoyancy. Allow me to demonstrate. It's a pretty simple concept, really. It goes back 200 BC when Archimedes, the grandfather of mathematics and physics, was taking a bath. While I'm hesitant to think of anyone's grandfather taking a bath, this is the way the story goes. When he set his considerable girth down in the bath, he noticed that the water levels rose. When he stood up out of the bath, the water level fell. Now the story goes that he jumped up, he shouted, "Eureka! Eureka!" and ran naked through the streets to tell the king of his discovery. King! Eureka! Oh boy. What Archimedes had discovered was that an object displaces the water because it needs to make room for its own weight and shape. That is why two objects of the same weight but different shapes will move different amounts of water. If the water displaced is less than the weight of an object, then the object will sink. But if the water displaced is equal to the weight of the object, then the object will float. Well, for thousands of years, the First Nations people of North America used the canoe to get around, to travel, to live their lives. But soon, a new user of the canoe would appear on the scene, and it would become a major vehicle of international finance, and it would play an important part in the birth of a new nation. When the Europeans arrived in North America, they discovered extensive Aboriginal trade networks already in place along established canoe routes. The First Nations culture was being borrowed by the new arrivals, who took notice of the way the natives moved goods and copied canoe designs. The most well-known paddlers of this period were the voyageurs. These colorful, celebrated, and most likely fragrant characters transported goods across the country and lived a life of hardship almost unimaginable today.
This is a large voyageur canoe known as a Montreal canoe, or in French, Canoe de Montréal. And as far as a birch bark canoe is concerned, this is about as large as you would ever want to build them. Both for the rivers that you're traveling on, the larger they get, the harder it is to navigate. Also on its length, the materials start to come apart. There's too much strain on the shape. It was a vital means of transportation in the fur trade, used to ship the trade goods that had come from Europe into the upper Great Lakes and come back out full of furs. You want to look at this a bit like a transport truck of today. It was built to carry 3 tons of cargo, 1 ton of crew in a canoe that can easily be picked up and carried by 4 of those crew on a portage. If you think about the lives on the river, we like to romanticize them. It was brutish work. The voyageurs were more like a draft animal than a happy paddler. You'd have the gouvernail in the stern of the canoe shouting, "Okay, les amis, préparez, en avant, let's go." And they'd start paddling. And we think of that stroke and glide that you might do with the loons up in Algonquin Park. There could be none of that with this boat. The crew are leaning over their paddles, a bit bent back, pull back, up and in. So you'd be watching in front of you so that all of the voyageurs were paddling in cadence, almost a stroke a second. And it's a very aggressive stroke. Doing this for hour after hour after hour, and you're just pulling on that water.
But sometimes paddling proved impossible, and le voyageur had to endure le portage.
This harness was used to carry 180 pounds, like so, and another one placed on top. And off he'd go at a jog trot across the portage.
This brutal task often left physical scars.
The French called it la bourse d'orignal, the hump of the moose. At the base of the neck was this, like a half grapefruit that had formed from a lifetime of carrying loads up on their neck. To do a portage might take several hours, and one would be happy to get back into the canoe at the end of it to do some paddling.
The birch bark canoe was handed down from the First Nations, and this ancient knowledge of canoe design is still being studied today. At the Peterborough Canoe Museum, a computerized digital imaging system is used to scan some of North America's oldest canoes. Known as taking lines, the data acquired here still influences today's canoe makers.
Seems like a lot of modern designs come and go, like they catch a fad and then they drift away. But basically the design of the canoe is very similar to what's been used over thousands of years. It's been handed down from skin canoes to birch bark canoes to cedar strip canoes. Now we're building them out of high-tech aerospace laminates.
At Novacraft, the only natural materials used are the cedar strips for making the canoe's gunnels. Today's canoe is either polyethylene made by placing a mold in a rock and roll oven and then cooling it before removal, or fiberglass and Kevlar, which are made by layering the synthetic materials a piece at a time in a mold. Or there is this process, which really sucks. This material has incredible structural memory. I'm not really sure what that means, but from what I gather, it means that you could lose control of a Royal X canoe, fold it against a bridge support, and it would reshape itself with little distortion. It is more resistant than fiberglass, it's lighter than polyethylene, and it can take abuse that would snap a wooden canoe in half. Abuse like this. You know what? I'm going to let the guys who make it do the abusing.
No problem.
The Royal X canoe starts off as a sheet of vulcanized plastic. Then they cook it.
After it's heated up in the oven, the foam core in the center expands, and that's what adds stiffness to the product without adding a lot of weight.
The now pliable material is stretched to fit over a mold, and a vacuum sucks the plastic into shape. Get it?
This will just sit here for 10 or 15 minutes till the plastic's hard enough that the canoe will hold its shape. It's certainly a popular material because it's lightweight, very rugged, very puncture resistant, so it's very popular for whitewater canoeing.
Royal X is a really terrific material if you're planning to bend your canoe around a rock in a rapid. And that may be your thing. I'm not judging you. For me, I don't know, I'm a little more like, let's just keep the boat above the water kind of guy. Something new started to happen in the mid-1800s, and I don't just mean Marxism. The canoe started to be seen not just as a work vehicle, but as a pleasure craft.
I call it the great transition from utilitarian activity to the great leisure thrust, which occurred about 1850 when the craftsmen of Europe came over, and they took to the romance of the Canadian canoe, and they virtually made canoes that looked like furniture.
Some canoe makers even went as far as equipping their canoes with record players, something I'm sure the voyageur would have been down with. The romance of the canoe, that vehicle from the great wilderness, appealed to a society reeling from the Industrial Revolution. To escape the bustling, stinky cities, a new emerging middle class sought refuge on canoe trips.
Considered to be, I guess at that time, the ideal vacation. The surface of the water in the intermittent sunshine is like a basket of diamonds.
It's not that I actually love the canoe. I actually love wilderness. I just find that the canoe is the easiest thing to use to go out to search what I actually really like. The whole idea of actually going on a canoe trip with all your belongings that you need, sitting in your canoe for 10 days and going from A to B. You paddle all day, you get to a campsite, put the tent up, have dinner, wake up, put all the gear in your canoe, paddle the next day. It's just really relaxing. That's why you go out. That's gorgeous. I think we're gonna have to portage. The only advantage of the portage really is that it gets you away from everybody. Because no one in their right mind would want to do this for a holiday. That's one of 5 I got today. I was 12 years old when I first tried a canoe trip, and I haven't stopped since. The history of tripping has changed dramatically. If you look at all the guidebooks in the 1930s, 1940s, it actually took a month to actually get to the place they're going to go canoeing, and then another month to actually do the trip. And then you look at the guidebooks that were written in the 70s and 80s, and the average canoe trip was 7 to 10 days. And now, the average canoe trip is 3 days. I don't know what's happened to us. We're a little too busy working instead of paddling around. The first few days, you're absolutely terrified of what's out there at night. But after the 6th day, you're so exhausted, you could care less what happens to you. And you're so comfortable with your surroundings. So I think they had it better back in the old days. I kind of consider myself an environmentalist, and I find a canoe trip helps re-energize my feelings towards the environment. I mean, at home, you spend all the time trying to save something, and you need a canoe trip to come out and see what you're actually saving back home and realize that we need this stuff. I mean, we're part of it.
By the end of the 19th century, the canoe had become a very central part to our emerging national identity. And in the century that followed, it would continue to be a part of what defined who we were as a nation. By the turn of the 20th century, the canoe was becoming an international Canadian icon. The group of 7 traveled the rivers and lakes of Algonquin Park in a canoe, capturing the natural beauty of Canada.
It was in the arms of the canoe that this great nation was developed. The maple leaf, as I've noted many times, does not appear in all the provinces and territories. Really, the canoe is the symbol of Canada. The canoe should be on our flag.
Canada. It was Pierre Elliott Trudeau who said, "The canoe purifies more rapidly and inescapably than any other. Travel 1,000 miles by train and you are a brute. Pedal 500 miles on a bicycle and you are still basically bourgeois. But paddle 100 miles in a canoe and you are already a child of nature." But perhaps one of the best known and loved canoeing enthusiasts was a filmmaker named Bill Mason. In the 1970s, Bill Mason directed and performed in several instructional films about the canoe for the National Film Board of Canada.
When you watch Mason's films, it's not that you're actually watching Bill Mason in the film. You're actually visualizing yourself in that canoe, and he takes you on a trip, and you almost think that you're actually on the trip itself. It's almost like he's actually inviting you to join him. And I think that's why so many people loved his films, and to this day, so many people actually still watch his films.
As skill and knowledge grow, so does a healthy respect for flowing water.
The Path of the Paddle featured Mason and his son, Paul.
Little harder. Little harder. Okay now, take her down.
This is Paul, who's no longer a child, and he's inherited his father's passion and skill for canoeing.
I think in hindsight, making the Path of the Paddle, Song of the Paddle films was a unique experience. Apparently not every kid got to do that.
I figured it's normal to go and spend all summer making films about canoeing, and then I became a guide and I taught canoeing, and it was normal to teach canoeing all the time.
Today he's teaching a workshop in whitewater canoeing known as creeking.
When I take a stroke here, it's going to tend to straighten the boat. What that does is it means that there's less of my boat trailing off the rock.
Whitewater canoeing has come a long way. These canoes, or playboats, are specially designed for use in whitewater.
It's a dance between your boat and the water. It's poetry.
From the hips down, your canoe, and from the waist up, you're human. So the boat will be rocking, but my upper body's staying upright, hopefully. If it's not, I'm going to fall in. This is an open canoe playboat, and it's shorter than a tripping canoe, skinnier. The bottom is much more rounded so that it allows it to bob through the waves. The downside is that you put a small little lunch bag with a sandwich in it and it's full. Like that's a loaded boat. It's a bit like a sports car. I've got these straps that are holding in my knees so that they keep me locked into the boat. I don't think you can really do this in your average cedar canvas prospector tripping canoe. You'd end up being a submarine. The airbags provide flotation to the canoe so that when it tips over, I can roll back up. Then you paddle off the shore and empty your boat. I've always been a canoeist, and as the sport changes and there's new challenges, I keep on doing it. We're gonna head down river and check out what's below.
It was Bill Mason who said that when you look at Canada, when you study its geography carefully, you come away with the idea that God could have designed the canoe first and then set about to conceive a land in which it would flourish. I buy that.